I'm Kyle and I'm 28 now, but this all happened when I was 22. Back then, I was so sure my family would always be there for me, no matter what. We were pretty average middle class, just me, my older brother Evan, and our parents. Evan was always the golden boy, super charming, quick with a joke, the kind of guy teachers and coaches adored. I was the quiet one, the one who kept to myself, you know. Never really caused any trouble, but I never really stood out either. It didn't bother me too much when I was growing up. I just figured that's how families are, not everyone's perfect, right? But as we got older, things changed a lot between Evan and me. By the time he was 25, Evan had landed this amazing job at some fancy downtown firm. He was driving a brand new BMW, and his Instagram was full of pictures from rooftop bars with a bunch of people who looked like they belonged in a magazine. My parents, they couldn't shut up about him. Every family get-together was just a non-stop Evan show. And me, I was slogging through college, working 2 part-time jobs, just barely making ends meet. They loved Evan's fancy life, but they just kinda tolerated my struggles. Even with all that, I still looked up to him. I was dumb enough to think he had it all figured out, and somewhere deep down, I really wanted him to be proud of me. That's why when he asked for help with something at work, I said yes without a second thought. That little problem? Yeah, it wasn't little at all. Okay, so Evan, he messed up. He was playing around with some private client files, you know, being a total idiot. And he needed someone to bail him out before anyone in management found out. See, I was studying IT security at the time. He thought I could, like, make his problems disappear. I wasn't so sure. I really was. But he laid on the guilt trip big time, throwing around the "we're family, you gotta help me" thing. And I guess I just didn't want to disappoint him, so I went along with it. I broke into his office one night, logged onto his computer, and, well, cleaned up his mess. I thought that was the end of it. Nope, not even close. About a couple weeks later, Evan got called in to a meeting. Someone in the higher-ups had spotted something fishy in the system logs, and it pointed right to his computer. Turns out my little cleanup act wasn't so clean. Evan got fired on the spot. No cushion, no nothing. That night he came home a wreck, slamming doors, chucking stuff around the house. It's burned into my memory. He found me in the kitchen, his face contorted red like I'd never seen before. "You screwed everything up for me?" he yelled, his voice cracking with anger. "You total idiot. I should have known better than to trust you with anything important." I just stood there, frozen, those words hitting me harder than I could have imagined. Before I could even figure out what the heck was going on, he stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture crashed off the wall. The next few days were a total mess. I thought, all right, he's pissed. He'll calm down. We'll chat. Maybe this whole mess would even bring us closer, like when you survive something with your sibling. But that feeling vanished fast. My parents started shooting me these short, frosty texts. Then the phone calls just stopped. Next, I wasn't invited to any family get-togethers. It wasn't just that we were far apart. It was like I'd been completely erased. After a week of trying, I finally got my mom on the phone. Her voice was ice cold. "I can't believe you'd wreck your own brother's career because you're jealous," she snapped. "You need to get some help, Kyle." The bottom fell out of my world. I tried to explain, tried to tell her the truth, but she kept interrupting. "Don't bother, Evan told us everything." Turns out Evan hadn't just been angry, he'd planned this. He told them I'd messed with his stuff on purpose because I was jealous of how well he was doing, that I wanted to bring him down so I could feel better about myself. It was such a crazy lie. But the worst part was they totally bought it. The next few months were the most alone I've ever been. No family birthdays, no holiday invites, not even a random text from a cousin. I dove into school, took extra shifts at work, and kept my head down. I tell myself I didn't care, but the truth was every time a holiday came around, it hit me hard. Meanwhile, Evan was busy picking up the pieces of his life. He got a new job, not as high up, but still decent. So I met this guy, Evan. He was all put together, you know, picture perfect. And he started dating Heather, who was just like him, totally polished. They got engaged after a year, and their engagement photos were everywhere online. Everyone was saying how happy they were, how Evan deserved all this good stuff after everything he'd been through. It was brutal, honestly. Every picture, every comment felt like a punch to the gut. I wanted to set the record straight so many times. I even wrote out these long emails explaining exactly what happened step by step. But I always backed down. Some stupid part of me hoped they'd figure it out on their own, hoped Evan would feel bad enough to come clean. Fat chance. He was too busy making himself look good. Then, like 3 years later, things changed. I got this amazing job offer, a real company, good pay, benefits. Finally, some stability. During training, I saw a name on the leadership team that was familiar. One of Evan's old coworkers from his first job, the one where he got canned. I didn't think anything of it at first. Then one day we were at lunch and someone started talking about crazy stuff that happened at the company years ago. My new boss laughed and said, "Man, there was this guy, super smart on paper, but a total mess. Tried to play everyone, thought he was smarter than the whole system. When it all fell apart, he tried to blame his brother. Wild." My sandwich stopped dead in midair. He didn't need to say Evan's name. I knew exactly who he meant. That night in my cramped apartment, I just stared at the ceiling, my brain a total whirlwind. This was it. The final piece of the puzzle. I never imagined someone outside the family would give me proof. Someone who wasn't biased, someone I could trust. Proof that everything Evan had said was a pack of lies. For the first time in ages, the anger I'd buried so deep came roaring back, way stronger and sharper than before. I'd spent so long just taking it, telling myself it wasn't worth the fight. But this time was different. It wasn't about getting even. It was about getting back the part of myself Evan had taken. I started making plans, slow and steady, just like Evan had been so meticulous in his lies all those years ago. I wasn't going to corner him alone. Nope, I wanted everyone to see the truth, all the family, no chance for him to spin it or cover things up. And that chance came sooner than I thought. It was at Evan's engagement party. This huge, fancy party downtown, all the family and a ton of friends crammed into this super sparkly room. Naturally, I wasn't invited, but my cousin, God bless her soul, secretly texted me the details. She didn't believe Evan's lies either, but she was too scared to say anything. My heart was pounding like crazy as I stood outside that night, clutching the flash drive with all the proof. I swear, people probably could hear it thumping. A part of me really just wanted to walk away and forget the whole thing. But then I saw Evan's stupid, smug face in my mind and my parents' disappointed looks and all those lonely holidays. Nope. It was time. I took a big breath and walked through the doors, and just as I was weaving through all the people, our eyes met. Evan's face went white as a sheet. The whole room felt like it just stopped for a second. Evan's eyes were huge, like he'd seen a ghost. His fiancée, Heather, was looking back and forth between us, totally bewildered. Some of his family started noticing something was up and began whispering. But Evan, always the smooth operator, plastered on this big fake grin and came striding over like we were best buds. "Kyle," he said, way too loud, way too enthusiastic. "Didn't expect to see you here, buddy." He tried to give me a hearty slap on the back, but I dodged it just enough so he knew I wasn't having it. I just gave him this small, tight little smile. "Yeah, funny how things work out. Figured tonight was as good a time as any to set the record straight." Evan's face twitched, just for a split second, but I saw it. Heather stepped up next to him, her arm linked with his. "You must be Kyle," she said, and I could tell she was nervous. I've heard a lot about you." She let out this shaky laugh. "Glad you could make it." My hands were dripping sweat, but I just kept going, my shoes clicking on the polished floor of that fancy place. The chatter started fading as people turned to look. I heard Evan hiss, "Kyle, don't, not here," just under his breath. I grabbed the microphone and gave it a tap. That ear-splitting feedback made a few people jump. "Sorry, everybody," I said, my voice booming across the room. "I know I wasn't invited, but could you just give me a minute? Please, this is important." The whole place went quiet, everyone staring, a little uneasy. Evan was frozen maybe 10 feet away, this fake smile plastered on his face, his hands balled into fists. I pulled a flash drive out of my pocket and held it up. 3 years ago, I started, trying to keep my voice steady, I was shut out of this family because of a lie my brother told you. He said I sabotaged him, that I was jealous and ruined his career. People started whispering. Evan's parents, my parents, they were all up front, staring at me with this mix of confusion and like rising panic. I just let the silence hang there. "I kept quiet," I went on, "because I figured the truth would come out eventually, but it didn't, so here we are." I walked over to the laptop hooked up to that giant projector screen they had for the engagement slideshow and plugged the drive in. A few seconds later, an email popped up on the screen. An internal memo from Evan's old company, sent to me anonymously by my new boss. The document laid it all out. The investigation, the dismissal, and the kicker that Evan had actually messed with files himself, then tried pinning it on a family member who barely had any access to company stuff. I slowly scrolled through it, letting everything click into place. I heard everyone gasp. One of my aunts just straight up dropped her champagne glass. And just so no one thought this was some kind of setup, I added. I pulled out a printed letter with the company seal, showing a signed statement from the legal department that backed it all up. Then I let the quiet sink in. It was thick, almost suffocating. Finally, Evan lurched forward, voice all shaky. "He's lying," he choked out. "He probably made all this up. You can't trust him. He's just bitter and obsessed with destroying me." I turned to him slow and said, "Funny, Evan. That's exactly what you accused me of." Heather was just staring at him now, mouth hanging open a little. She looked at me, then back at Evan. "Is it true?" she whispered, but the mic picked it up anyway, blasting her words across the entire room. Evan started stammering, looking all over the place for someone to back him up, but the room wasn't buying it anymore. People were backing away. Some were shaking their heads. My parents looked totally stunned, my mom holding onto my dad's arm like she was about to fall over. I put the mic back on the stand. "That's all I wanted to say," I said, my voice steady. "Thanks for listening." Then I turned and walked away without looking back, my heart pounding but head held high. I didn't stick around to see what happened next, at least not in person. The messages started blowing up my phone pretty fast, maybe an hour later. My cousin sent a fuzzy picture of Evan just completely defeated at a table. His whole perfect life was falling apart, and Heather was going ballistic at him in front of everybody. Then my uncle messaged me. "I'm so sorry, Kyle. We messed up. We should have listened." By the time the next morning rolled around, the engagement was off. Half the family had cut him off completely. My folks left me a voicemail. Mom was bawling and just wanted me to come over so we could chat. I didn't call them back. I just wasn't ready to deal with it yet. For the first time in ages, I felt something I didn't know I'd even lost: freedom. But even looking at all the notifications piling up on my phone, I knew this wasn't the end. I spent the rest of that night sitting on the balcony outside my apartment, and the cool night air was like a blanket. My phone was buzzing constantly on the table beside me. Missed calls, voicemails, texts that began with frantic pleas like, "Please call us, Kyle." Then they got more and more desperate. "We need to explain," they said. "You don't know the whole story. Come home." Home, what a joke. The thing was, home stopped being home the moment they swallowed Evan's lies without even hearing what I had to say. This sudden change of heart now didn't feel like a loving invitation. It felt fake, empty. They didn't miss me. They missed the idea of a perfect family they could show off at every get-together. I kept ignoring the calls. I was drowning in work, pulling all-nighters at the office, hiding in the noise of coffee shops and busy grocery stores, just trying to disappear. Every time my phone vibrated, my gut clenched, but I wouldn't answer. Screw them, I thought. They didn't deserve another thing from me, not after all that happened. Then, a week later, bam. Mia, my cousin, shows up at my door, drenched to the bone, clutching a Tupperware container, looking like she'd aged a decade in a week. I didn't even hesitate, just let her in. "I know you probably don't want company," she mumbled, all shaky. "But Mom said you weren't answering, and I figured if I brought your favorite lasagna, you'd at least listen." We sat at my tiny kitchen table, her spooning out soppy, steaming lasagna onto my chipped plates. We just ate, quiet as could be for ages. Finally, she spoke. "It's a total mess back home," she said. "After you left the party, Uncle Dave cornered Evan, and Evan cracked. He confessed, spilled the whole thing, said you were supposed to take the rap for him, said you were his backup plan just in case he got caught." I let out this bitter, shaky laugh. "Backup plan," I said. "Yeah, that pretty much nails it, huh?" Mia stared down at her food, pushing it around with her fork. "Mom's been crying her eyes out. Dad's, well, he's furious," she said, nodding to herself. "Says he should have seen this coming." I couldn't say anything. My voice would have cracked. "They're having a family dinner," Mia said, her face twisting like she'd eaten something awful. "They want you there. They want to say they're sorry in front of everyone." I just looked at her, feeling nothing. No happiness, no nothing, just this big, heavy feeling of being worn out. "I'll think about it," I finally said. Honestly, I didn't know if I could actually do it. What good would it even do? No apology could take back the years they just ditched me. No amount of "I'm sorry" would change all those Thanksgivings I spent alone, or the times I pretended Christmas wasn't a thing just to avoid the pitying looks from people. But a few days later, when the invitation arrived, a fancy printed card, I was curious. Like they thought a fancy piece of paper would make it all okay. I almost tossed it in the trash, but something inside me, this stubborn, edgy part of me, wouldn't let Evan win. I wanted them to see, really see, the person I'd become without them, that I wasn't this sad, messed up person still living in their shadow. I needed them to get that they hadn't ruined me, they'd just set me free. So on the night of the dinner, I put on my best outfit. Crisp navy button-down, black slacks, my boots were shined. I looked good, like I was in control, and for the first time I felt it too. When I walked into the restaurant, the private room went completely silent. Every head turned. I saw my parents sitting stiffly at the head of a long table and the rest of the family scattered around them, looking uncomfortable. Mia gave a little wave from her chair. Evan was practically hiding, slumped way down in his chair, like he wished he could disappear. I just stood there for a sec, letting everyone get a good look at me, not the loser Evan had painted me to be, not the envious little brother they'd believed him to be. Mom was the first one up, twisting her hands. "Kyle, honey, thank goodness you're here. Please sit down." Nah, I'm good, I said, cutting her off real calm. Her face fell a little, but she nodded. Dad cleared his throat. Kyle, he began, we owe you the biggest apology ever. We were completely wrong. He was struggling with every word like each one was a ton of bricks. Mom's voice cracked, tears pouring down her cheeks as she spoke. A bunch of aunts and uncles chimed in with their own apologies, some felt more genuine than others. Then, boom, silence. Everyone stared at Evan. He looked like he hadn't slept in ages. His usually perfect hair was a mess, his jaw was all scraggly. Heather wasn't even there, he wouldn't even look at me. Finally, he mumbled, I'm sorry, his eyes glued to the tablecloth, for everything. It was pathetic, half-assed, just going through the motions. It wasn't the satisfying moment I'd pictured. Right then, I got it. Evan had already lost everything that mattered, his good name, his girlfriend, his family's trust. He was living with the mess he'd made, and that would stick with him forever. I didn't need revenge, I'd already won. I stood up straight, shoving my hands in my pockets. Thanks for saying sorry, I said, my voice even. But I'm not trying to go back, that can't happen. Mom's face just fell apart. Dad stared down at his hands, the other family members fidgeted. I'm not mad anymore, I went on, but I've made a life, a good one. I'm not gonna wreck it to fit back into a family that didn't want me when it really counted. Those words just hung in the air, weighing everything down. I hope you all are okay, I added, and I actually meant it more than I thought I would. But I'm moving on, without you. Then, without waiting, without giving them a chance to plead or whatever, I turned and left. The chilly night air hit my face as I walked out of the restaurant, but this time it didn't hurt. It felt like a cleansing, like I was finally free of this huge shadow that had been following me for years. I didn't look back. No need to, I drove home in complete silence. No music, no radio, just the sound of the tires on the road. My mind wasn't freaking out like I thought it would. No second thoughts, no guilty feelings twisting my gut. Just this calm, sure feeling that I had said everything that needed to be said. When I got home, my phone was still going crazy. Missed calls, unread texts, voicemails piling up. I just scrolled through them without really looking. My phone was blowing up. Mom and Dad were freaking out, apologizing again, begging me to come over for Sunday dinner just to talk. Some cousins chimed in, saying they were impressed with how I handled things, even proud. Proud of me, weird. Doing the right thing is pretty straightforward, isn't it? Another one said they were there for me if I needed to hang out. Then there were Evan's texts, short at first like, Kyle, call me. Then they got longer. I didn't mean for it to get this bad. And finally, just pathetic. I don't have anyone else, please. I just stared at that last one, feeling totally numb. No anger, no sense of winning, just this empty, sad feeling, like when you see a house you loved as a kid all falling apart. You're sad for what it was, but you know there's no saving it. I turned my phone off and chucked it on the couch. The next few weeks were a weird, hazy time. I kept waiting for the guilt to hit me, like it always did whenever I finally stood up for myself. But it never came. Actually, I felt lighter, free like I'd never felt before. I started getting out more, not to party or anything, but to actually live. I took a photography class I'd always dreamed of, joined a hiking group, even got back in touch with some old friends I hadn't seen in ages, friends I'd lost when I was drowning in family drama. For the first time since I grew up, I wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. It was amazing. My whole life turned around, not just my love life. My job took off, too. With all that emotional baggage gone, I had so much more energy to put into work. A few months after that awful engagement party, bam, I got a big promotion. I was running a small team. It wasn't some huge, fancy thing, but it was mine. I earned it, plain and simple. Hard work and determination, not some backroom deal. Then one beautiful Saturday morning, about 6 months later, I was at the park with Mia, enjoying coffee and watching the dogs play. She'd become one of the few family members I still talked to, not because I felt I had to, but because she'd really earned her place in my life. I saw Evan the other day, Mia said, breaking the quiet. I raised an eyebrow. Oh yeah, she nodded, swirling her coffee. He looks terrible, lost his job again. He's bouncing around on people's couches, but nobody really wants him around anymore. She added, Heather's family cut him off completely too. Honestly, I didn't feel any satisfaction, just a kind of weary acceptance. He did this to himself, I said. Mia looked at me, really looked at me. You really don't hate him, huh? I thought about it for a second, really thought. No, I finally said. I don't trust him. And I don't want him in my life anymore. It's not hate, it's just, I don't care anymore. Mia gave a little smile like she was really happy for me. That's true freedom, you know, not even caring enough to hate. We sat there, sipping our coffee, the sun warm on our backs. It was quiet, peaceful. Time just kept on ticking, you know. My family, they kept trying to reel me back in. Holiday cards, endless group texts, even those overly polite emails. But I held my ground. I sent nice little no thank you notes, wished them well from afar, and just did my own thing. After a while, the invites dried up. The messages got fewer and farther between. Finally, all that reaching out just stopped. It became this low, quiet buzz in the background, hardly noticeable. And that's when it hit me. Forgiveness isn't about letting those people back in your life. It's not about pretending nothing bad ever happened or letting them walk all over me again. It's about dropping the anger, letting it go so it doesn't hold you prisoner to the past. I forgave them. Not because they deserved it, but because I deserved some peace. About a year after that awful engagement party, I was standing on my new apartment balcony. It was downtown, overlooking the river, way bigger and brighter than anything I'd ever had before. The city lights twinkled below, and the whole place just felt alive. I thought about that kid I used to be, the one who always needed his brother's approval, who jumped through hoops just to get a seat at a table that wasn't even there for him. He was gone. Now there's a man standing here who knows his own worth. A man who doesn't need anyone's permission to live a good life. A gentle breeze blew against my shirt as I leaned on the railing, a smile spreading across my face. I wasn't mad anymore. I wasn't broken. It felt amazing, like a huge weight was gone. Being unburdened finally was all I needed.